Hey, you guys, it's Jamekia. It's your favorite teacher's teacher. All right, you guys. So coming in hot. All right. I actually, I wanted to go over a couple different things. However, I have to find my USB card, my little whatever thing in my bob is called. So we're just gonna do one thing. So let me go ahead and show. Look, let me go ahead and share my screen. I got so much stuff going on, y'all. Um, It looks like I'm a liar because I don't even see. Hold on, y'all. It was open. Yeah, there it goes. So I don't understand why it won't let me share this screen. All right, so I'm going to save some stuff because I'm not sure why um this won't let me share my screen without getting rid of some stuff. So let's get rid of this. Y'all know your girl got a lot going on. Save. And then let's see. Can I open it? Test question. All right, y'all. Now let's see, will it allow me to open this lovely document for you guys? Boom. Here we go. All right, there we go. All right, so one of the things that I realized as a teacher, my second year teaching, first off, let me give y'all a little backstory. Story time. I did not go to school and get a degree in education. I went to school. I have a degree in creative writing or in literature, but creative writing was my focus. And I was in look, I've done everything. I was in insurance and I was also a loan closer, so a notary prior to me becoming a teacher. So when I came into the field of teaching, there were a lot of things I knew because I tutored students, I assisted people in getting their GED, different levels like that from, like I said, from kindergarten all the way to adult education. So there was a lot I knew, and I knew how to teach, or I guess fill in certain gaps. But there were certain things that I did not learn to teach as an educator. And one of those things was really understanding the difference between literature and informational text. I just knew questions and how to answer questions and what to look for. And so when I first came into teaching, the standards used to be different. Now they were standards, now we call them benchmarks, tomato, tomato, right? What you're teaching to the student, um, the way that it was presented, right, was different from what I had known. And so we would have to do RL and RI. So it's reading literature, reading informational. And those two things were separate, but the questions were still asking, there were still similar questions, but the kids were um, missing a lot of gaps. The kids were missing a lot of information, which created a lot of gaps in what they knew and what they did not know. And so I needed to understand what they needed from the elementary level because I was a middle school teacher teaching middle school level text, right? Because the idea which I showed you guys in one of the other videos is that they're supposed to be proficient on their grade level. And the school that I worked at and where I taught the majority of my teaching career was on the ridge. And so what we call on the ridge is meaning it just means that we had a lot of students who were predominantly students or children of migrant workers, meaning that their education may have had a lot of gaps, their parents moved around a lot, so they may have moved around a lot, or this was their first time in a school. They may have come over from other places, so they were the first English language learner in their household. um a lot of different things like that. So the economic division also created a educational or academic division as well. So I had a lot of students who were in sixth and seventh and eighth grade because I've taught all of them. My first year teaching, I taught sixth. I started out sixth grade the first 3 months. Somewhere by December, I had sixth and eighth grade as a first year teacher. My second year teaching, I think I had sixth and seventh, and then it just every year was something different. Then I went to high school, I taught 10th grade, and I came back. So every year was something different, but I always taught language arts and reading and different grade levels until my last year. Last year I was straight ELA eighth grade, which was like, thank you. um, so one of the things, like I was saying in the beginning, those first 2 years, there were certain things that I struggled with because my students were so delayed. There were certain things that they didn't know. And so me as a long time tutor, I was just trying to figure out, okay, so how can I bridge these gaps and try to understand what I need to provide to these students in order for me to fill in anywhere from 4 to 6 or 7 years worth of information. Because again, I was teaching sixth and eighth grade students who were at a first, second, third grade reading level. And randomly enough, I would have like one or two students who were on par with eighth grade and one or two who were above that. And with having all of these different learning diversities in your classroom, it's a lot for a teacher, a first year teacher or second year teacher, to who did not come in with an educational background, a true educational background, to really fulfill these roles. And so it was my second year where I really sat down and I was like, I don't get it. Like I talked to my AP and my coach at the time, and I was like, I don't get it. I was like, so what is the difference between literature and informational text? Not just, your basics. And I'm going to write those in as well as we go through some of this. So usually the basics and what everyone focuses on for literature, it means that it's fiction, right? And here is nonfiction. And then they usually talk about this means that these are real life stories, right? Or real life events. But remember, typically we would say real life stories. And so I would be like, I mean, but what else? Like, how is this, And then they would go into things like, you have over here, you'll have the theme. Here you would have the main idea. And I was trying to think of what else could be said. That's good enough for me right now. So these were just some basic things, and I was just like, yeah, I get this. This is the stuff that I got and I understood. But I was like, when it comes into, because again, our standards were different then as well. And I was like, but when it comes to, these particular standards, like, I'm just not understanding what I need to do for my students to fill in these gaps, because everything sounds the same thing. And we will use different words interchangeably, even though the words go with specific areas. So I'm gonna give you an example. One word that we would use interchangeably would be character. Or over here, you would say people. Or like I said here, it says fiction, we would say story or stories. And we would say, okay, let's read this story. And we will be talking about an informational text. And this informational text is not a story. They're both text. And you could say that, but it's not a story. And so if we're as a teacher, if you're telling a child, let's read this story, and it's an informational text, and they're reading it, they're going to start thinking that we're supposed to be bringing in characters, and there's no characters in this particular story. Who do we have? Well, we have people. Well, then we have to change it, because then it's not a story, because we're not storytelling at this point, right? Now we're looking at real life events, or something like that. So I created this other document that looks similar to this. It was and you guys can use this. You can create your own stuff. I'm not going to give y'all all my tricks and tools. Primarily, I'm not going to give it all to you just because I couldn't find a USB drive. But I created a document similar to the one that's here on the screen. Up above, and you guys can do this for yourselves. Up above, what I did was I inserted a table, right? And I put at the top, this was word box. And all of these words that you're going to see me type in here. Oh, it's the disrespect for me. We'll do it later because I'm not going to mess up. All of the words that are here, I put in this lovely word box. And I had these students to figure out where these words belong. And this was something I did at the beginning of, I think about my third or fourth year, something that I started to do every year at the very beginning of the school year, because I needed them to be able to identify what words went where. And this was one of their first sheets that were in their 3-ring binders or their folder or whatever have you, because I needed them to always use it as a reference. Because this is one of those things that you just have to be clear on when you're dealing with helping lower learners, right? And when I say that, I mean people who are having certain discrepancies, and you're seeing maybe their scores are pretty decent in literature, but they suck in informational text. Usually informational text is usually the lower of the two in terms of testing scores, or they got informational text and then struggled in literature. It was kind of like an either or. And usually if they were struggling in these two areas, in one of these two areas, they primarily went into a reading class. And in reading, intensive reading, we focus primarily on informational text. And so I did this in both classes because I asked the questions, right? And I asked it over and over and over and over again. But at some point, with a little bit of guidance, I started to comprehend for myself, because I'm one of those people who I'm going to go and study it and I'm going to figure it out and I'm going to embody it so that when I teach it, that wherever my students are on this learning scale, whether they're the lowest of the low or the highest of the high, I can make sure that we help each other. And also this helps as well in terms of dividing your students up into groups and whatever else, because this is your data. And so you want data-driven groups, you want data-driven activities, different things like that, in order to enforce success in your class. And this is how eventually within my last year getting a 77% increase in proficiency, this is one of those things that assisted me. So I just want to make sure that we kind of go through this a little and clear up some things. And that way you can use this with your students. You can create your own version. If I find my document, hopefully I can upload it as well. You can have a free resource. And at some point, y'all, because this is not teaching, I'm gonna have a place where y'all can go and purchase some of my stuff. You know what I'm saying? Because I need to create, you know what I'm saying? I'm trying to create the life that I love to live, and I need the monies to keep up with this lavish lifestyle. All right, y'all. So let's keep going. So one of the things, excuse me, that I taught with the students about, right? Fiction, these are your stories. Usually they are made up. So I don't know if you want to put made up stories. You can put this. If you have characters over here, you have people here. If you have settings here, on the other side, you will have locations. I also would include, because you're setting, here, over here, I would put location, I would put dates. and times. Um, you could put era. So like when was it written? Is it written in Renaissance era? And even going back into let's go back over to our other resource too, you guys. So screen share. Boom. Oh snap. Boom. Got it. All right. So even going back over here to this resource that I showed you guys earlier. So this is your ELA language arts standards. And inside this, if you guys go all the way to the back, these are some of those last pages. Um, this also goes over like text features and certain things like that. So these are some of the things that you need to make sure that you're incorporated with your students. So these are the in the 100. So this was, I think that was 12th grade. So yeah. So, some of your things may have charts. A chart, of course, this says with information. So, on your informational text, you should be able to put charts over on that document. If you can't see both documents, you guys, I do apologize, but once I update it, you'll be good to go. Also, footnotes and references. Primarily, you're going to see this in your literature, in your informational text, but it's also sometimes in literature as well. They do reference it. So this is something I would teach that's within both. And maybe you can do a third column if you would like in your documentation where you can talk to students about things that'll show up in both. But what I wanted to go over, so, here you have your glossaries, graphs, headings, all of these things can be included on there. But what I was looking for was, I was talking to you guys about the error, and it should be here as well. You guys make sure that you guys go through this document. I know I did not do a whole lot, and I might go back through and look at these resources because I love them. And it may not, if it is in here, I'm not sure what page is on, y'all, because I didn't prepare for this one. But I did want you to know that it was provided. It's a whole lot of stuff going on. Okay, glossary. Let me just do this. Oh, the disrespect. Girlfriend. Girls. I should have had I had a whole 3-ring binder, you guys, that had it. But anyway, so it would talk about the different errors. And so that's something that you want to make sure that you touch on a little bit as well. And inside of the Pearson book, it actually reflects some of the errors. Like it will talk about medieval times or the different influences. I don't see it, y'all. They might have took it out. I don't believe they did. I'm kind of upset. So hopefully I can see this. Writing errors. 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 So hopefully you can see this screen. Let me make sure. Yep, you can. So in terms of like when things were written, those ideas, those the historical stances always have influences on the literature that the student is reading. And so you can express that inside of your teaching and let the students know. And this is a great way to introduce that. And you can even ask them what have they been exposed to. Usually in middle school and lower economic communities, they don't have the exposure to any of it because we're so busy trying to concentrate on the basics. But I always was that teacher who always wanted to go over it. And they do, like I said, in the Pearson book, it does touch on it. It gives them, usually once you get into the second quarter, into the second quarter, it starts to introduce certain eras, and what type of writings would be introduced during that era, why, and who some of those authors were who were great influencers on that. So I definitely always want to say use your resources. It is already there. Not only even with the Pearson book, it has the, and I wish I had access, but I don't, you guys. Boo. But even within that, it has the physical, you have the physical book, and that is there that can help you. I'm trying to sit and think. I might come back with a book because I think I got a book that I used to use and write in. But you have your physical book, which we had, which was tearaways for our school. But then you also have the online resources. And if you combine both of them, the online resources will enforce whatever it is that you go over in class. And what I usually like to do is I am a hands-on teacher Monday and Tuesday. After we have passed Monday and Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, the students are on their own because at this point, my job is just to facilitate their learning experiences. And so I am there to help them dive in a little bit deeper into their their processes and different things like that. But to stay on track with this video, because this is not that video, I have to remind myself. Some of those that was listed, like I said, colonialism, romanticism, realism, all of this is in the book. It was a page in here that actually talked about it as well. I don't know exactly which page it is. I don't have that 3-ring binder. That's what I should have picked up when I stopped at the school. I went to the school today, y'all, just to let y'all know. I should have picked up my book of students' work. But either way, it's within there. You can easily put some. I love sticky notes. I'm the sticky note queen. And I got them in all sizes and colors. But you're able to go through and actually put the sticky notes on those particular areas. Just like right now, we're looking at figurative language. It's on both. So everything that you need to know, like additional resources, is within this document. But going back over to our sheet that I was going here, I would go through here and actually, because this can actually be on both sides, but primarily it's going to always be with literature because it's how it influences the text. But I would go through and I would list out all the things that's available between informational and literature, because even when you have like your compare and contrast, and I seen that in the other page too, when you go over your compare and contrast or your sequencing or whatever else, all of those things are very beneficial for you to figure out which ones support which area the most, so that you could let the students know this is where you're going to see this at the most, and when we get into this is what we're going to cover, just to do like a brief introduction before really diving into the information for the students, so that you can say, hey, don't you guys remember blah blah blah, or pull out this sheet so that it can assist you. So again, you have your characters, you have your setting, you have this would be time as well. um Seasons can go through both because it's part of time. I'm trying to think of anything else, because I know some of the things seem as though, well, most of the stuff seems as though it can go through both, but the biggest thing is this character setting, situation, and people and locations. If you can just drive home that within your students, that will be a big factor in helping them understanding the difference between literature and informational text. And then, of course, all the others, things like graphs and whatever else. I don't even know at this point for ourselves. But then you can say things like novels, poetry, lyrics, mystery, And y'all excuse me because I'm not the best speller, but I'm real smart. Science fiction. What else? Fables. I think the L is, yeah. So fables, myths. I don't feel bad about not being able to spell y'all because I'm smart. Okay, just letting you know. Plays. And then of course over here you can go through and say memoirs, because sometimes memoirs, when people talk about it, it seems like stories as well, but these are actual, again, those real life events, those things that are not changed. Then you could go into your like autobiographies. Okay. Historical accounts. And make sure you explain the difference between because even here the historical accounts and then scientific, and then they also have historical fiction. So make sure that you've identified for yourself what some of those indicators are with historical fiction versus the historical accounts, so that you can explain that to your students to fill in those gaps, because some stories, again, align with some real life events, but there are the adaptations or the different changes, and you want to make sure that you're instilling that in the students so they have clarity when it's their time to actually explore these on their own and be like, oh, okay, so um Abraham Lincoln was a real person, but he wasn't a vampire. So it's a historical fiction because now they have him used as a vampire or whatever else. And explain to your students that some of the stories that they learn in school, when they learn it, when they go to research it on their own, there may be some discrepancies. Let them know. Okay. I love the word allegedly. That's one of my favorite words ever since I learned it from from what's the girl name? How you doing? Yeah. Um that was just one of my favorite words because I love it. Okay. And so teach the kids. Be like, allegedly this happened or this didn't happen or whatever else, because they need to understand that they have to learn things on their own. And when they start to explore, especially when we're talking about historical facts and fictions and whatever else, that there's a plethora of things that are out there that they may that a little may learn that's a little bit different in school versus the actual history of it. All right. A few more things and then we're gonna be done. So we can talk about textbooks, how to guides, cookbooks, and news articles. News. And I don't know if you guys use any of these resources. But typically we had Achieve 3000. Y'all be having to make sure I got stuff right. So typically we use Achieve 3000. And I'm just putting this down here for y'all just as like some additional stuff. So Achieve 3000, if your school or county provides it, this usually it started out being for us informational text, but it does have a lot of literature in it as well. A lot of science fiction stuff. So if your kids are into that, it was a great resources. Um, I think the other one was News ELA. Which is another great resource. I think that's what it was called, y'all. Let me just double. Yeah, that's it. News ELA, which was a good one. There's another one I used to use all the time, and oh, Common Lit is another great resource. And these are just things that you guys can use. Like again, if your county is using Pearson or whatever. Primarily, look, we're gonna put this. Use the books. I have to put it in caps. I'm yelling. Use the books that the books or resources that the county provides. So if it's Pearson, let it be Pearson. If it's it used to be one that starts with an H. I don't remember. But whatever those bigger names are, because typically 9 times out of 10, especially if it's Pearson, Pearson's is the ones who are actually running the tests when we push out certain tests within our district, especially here in Polk County. Again, I'm gonna assume that all of Florida is slightly on the same page, but use those resources that they provide because you're giving your students the opportunity to see the similar questions that are on the test, because the people who write the books are the people who also write the test. So it makes sense for them to be as close as possible to that. And then if you want to use certain things as an alternative, I know Common Lit was really good with some of the students. They really enjoyed it. Newsella was really good. Achieve 3000 again had some good articles. Um, you can always go to Scholastics as well. And ReadWorks, I think, is another one. Um, Let me see over here, y'all, because I be trying to keep y'all together. Okay. Um, that's it. Those were the ones that I use the most commonly, right? Okay. If I find anything else, I will let you know. Um, And if y'all got any resources, let us know. Like, write in the chat down below and share your resources with other teachers. I know people use like teacher pay teacher and stuff like this, but most of these that I'm trying to recommend to you have questions and answers as well. So let me put that down. Because I really don't want y'all to be doing too much work. Like you got enough going on already. Talking to these kids all day, talking to their parents, the administrations, grading papers, trying to just be a regular teacher, and then got to be somebody's mama and a therapist and all this other stuff. I love y'all, and I need y'all to love yourselves enough to not do additional work. Now, if teacher pay teacher, I'm gonna put it down there for y'all. Because I know a lot of y'all use it as a resource. So use the resources that you can use. But I know for certain, like this Newsella, I'm gonna put a star beside it, Common Lid, and ReadWorks. Eh, I want to put a star beside ReadWorks, but I think those two is my favorite ones. When you're in the upper grade levels, those two are really gonna give you um the word count, the proficiency that the kids really need. They're gonna give you stories that the kids will also see when they're testing, allegedly, because don't nobody see the test for real. But in the practice test, it looks similar to some of those stories, so having them exposed to certain languages, especially when in terms of like the old English, and coming from different eras. Um and I keep saying it, and I hope I'm saying it right, because that's what I always said it, y'all. I'm real country, but not too country. Let's see. Era. Okay. So coming from the different era, um you're gonna get that exposure in these that's below here, right? In Common Lit and News ELA. Some of the other ones, they do have great resources. I'm not gonna lie to you, the resources are really great. However, I want you to get your students as used to specific language as possible, as much as possible, because when they get to a test, I don't want them to be like, what word is this? And what is this? Or what is that? What does this mean? Um, especially if you have not had if they just don't have the background for it. Again, I'm speaking to teachers who deal with a lot of lower economic students whose parents may not speak English at all. English is their first language. You're fighting a different fight than those who have the exposure, who come from more affluent environments. And even those who are in some of the affluent environments, um, sometimes there is um they get lethargic while they're reading, right? And so you want to make sure I would still highly recommend those as resources, because you want to make sure that they're building up reading stamina. And that way, as the students are getting used to reading more than a paragraph or two, and the way that things are broken down nowadays, um the paragraphs look like three sentences, how books are structured. And I don't know if that's what y'all have been experiencing, but I've been experiencing where paragraphs look like 2 to 3 sentences. And in general, a paragraph is 5 to 7. Um, so you want to get your students used to actually sometimes seeing what an actual paragraph looks like. Get them reading so that they're not having readers fatigue as they're going through the testing environment. Excuse me, especially now that we're testing roughly 3 to 4 times throughout the semester. So having the students really get used to that experience and that type of information, providing them with that homework. I know some parents are really fighting back on homework, but homework is definitely necessary. Not a lot of it, but it's necessary just to rebuild and reinforce what they've been learning in the classroom. So there has to be a balance with it all. But again, y'all, go through some of this, take notes. Like I said before, I would have all of this at the top. It keeps trying to connect, you guys, and that's going to make me cry. So I'm just going to leave it alone. But I would have all these words at the very top in this word box, allow the students to figure out which area the words go in, how they correlate, how they correlate. And then this would be like within the first couple of weeks of school. I know school has already started. They've had a couple of breaks or whatever else. This is something that you could do at any point in time, honestly. But do it, get them exposed to it, and reiterate this and have them use it as a resource where they can pull it out and say, okay, well, we're looking at informational text. So what are some of the things that we should be looking at? And as always, when I'm doing literature, like I always am like, we should always know the character, the setting, and then, the problem. So let me add that. Those are usually the first three things that we would pull out, because you should be able to identify that within the first few paragraphs of your reading. Yeah, the first at least 2 to 3 paragraphs should already give you that information. And then of course, in literature, who are the people, the location, the dates, whatever else that is concerning that you want to look at. And then I'm gonna come back through, you guys. I'm gonna show you guys some other tidbits as well. But I'm thirsty. I'm gonna drink my little Zephyr's Hills, and that ain't do enough. But I'm gonna I'm gonna let this go. Look, you guys, I hope you learned a couple of tidbits. Use this as a resource for your students. Also use some of these other ones, check those out, use it. But again, I'm always a major player right here, where I'm telling you, use what the district provides to you. Number one, don't try to recreate the wheel. And let me know what books you guys are using. If I have it, I'm gonna try to come in. Y'all can send me some PDFs and I'll try to work on that. But I'll look and see what books that I have, because I might have used it. I might need to go back to school tomorrow and go get my book. But I'm gonna see what I have, what I can bring in and use. I don't have all the resources that I used to have as a teacher, so you show me what you have and I'll show you how to use the resources for yourself. Again, if you haven't already subscribe to the channel. Go back and replay this. It might be something that may stick out to you the second or third time that you replay it. Write down in chat any questions that you have, anything that you want me to focus on. Please let me know. don't hesitate to let me know, because I'm here to help you and assist you as much as possible. Um, yeah, share this video out with any new teachers, because I know as a new teacher, you need as much assistance as you can. And sometimes the administration will push something out to you, but they won't go back over it or whatever have you. I'm here to do that for you and assist you in those arenas, and making sure that things work with you, and whatever's not working, we can figure out new ways to do it together, because I am a strategist as well. All right, you guys. So I love you guys, and I shall see y'all later. All right. Bye, y'all.